investing in property makes sense, investing in the right property takes knowledge. Welcome to the Rewarding Property Decisions podcast. I'm Jared McCabe, Director of Wakeland Property Advisory. Join me for expert insights into the fundamentals, trends and opportunities to help you create long-term wealth through smart property decisions. Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 22 of the Rewarding Property Decisions podcast. So Happy New Year and welcome everyone to 2022. I hope you've all managed to enjoy a safe break, had some time away, and obviously managed to stay as healthy as possible during these continuing strange times. The market's certainly now started to open up for 2022. We've seen a couple of weeks now of open for inspections, and we'll see our first significant auction weekend in Melbourne on the 12th of February, so next week. And numbers from what we're seeing at the moment are looking as though it'll be in excess of 1,000 auctions. So we'll open up with the media's favourite line of a Super Saturday. Thus far, we've seen pretty good numbers attending open for inspections. Obviously, we're not fully stocked in terms of supply at the moment, but that'll continue to develop over the coming weeks. But certainly the numbers at this stage are looking pretty good. So what we thought we'd do from a podcast perspective is start this year the same way as we did last year, going over our annual market report, so the property report for 2022. Now, if you're on our mailing list, you'll have received a soft copy of the report already. Now, if you're not, there'll be a link within the episode information blurb where you can download it, or you can obviously go to our website, wakeland.com.au, and download a copy there. So what we thought we'd do from a podcast perspective is break the report into two parts. And so today I'll discuss the first half, which is focusing on a survey that we conducted of 3 questions last year. We had over 180 respondents. So it's just going over the information that we collected from that, which is quite interesting. And then obviously the second part to the podcast, which we'll do over the next week or two, we'll cover off on our expectations for 2022 and some of the impacts there as well. So just as an overall from the report's point of view, as we're obviously very interested in property and dynamics and statistics and things, and we've certainly found this another very interesting exercise putting the report together, looking at those things that have occurred over the last 12 months. Certainly there's been some pretty astute investors who've increased their wealth quite significantly. We've certainly seen demand really pushing prices along and up to record prices. This time last year, there was certainly quite a bit of talk and predictions from a number of different angles saying that the market may well turn down. However, those that were looking at underlying fundamentals typically thought otherwise. Probably few, though, thought that we'd get in excess of 15% growth through 2021, given the uncertainty that was around at the time. One of the very notable considerations that we certainly focused on was the strength of the market prior to the pandemic, and that was certainly a big consideration from our point of view going forward and why we expected the market would still be quite good through last year. The back end of 2019, there was some pretty significant growth and positivity around, and that led into 2020 before the pandemic obviously really kicked in. Now, obviously, once the restrictions came into force, it made things very difficult, even for those that really did want to transact. The lockdowns made it hard to have building inspections and things conducted, made it hard to actually conduct an inspection yourself. But whenever the market did open through 2020, the activity was certainly there, which is why we had confidence this time last year that 2021, if it could get a clean run, the market would be quite good. And that's certainly the way it planned out. Now, our expectations this time last year were growth of over 10%. So we weren't too far off the mark, but we're probably even a little bit conservative. So we don't necessarily expect the same levels of growth in 2022. Certainly we think supply and demand will be a bit more balanced. So our expectations at this stage is that growth will probably be around the 5% mark, maybe even a little bit more. Now, as I mentioned earlier, during the spring last year, we conducted a survey of over 180 people who have expressed interest in property investment or perhaps have purchased investment properties in recent years. And what we wanted to look at was the market sentiment around property investment at that point in time for those that do have an interest, particularly as investment or investors have the activity in that space has been quite dormant over recent years, particularly probably since the Royal Commission. It was interesting. I had a conversation with a very prominent real estate agent in the southeastern suburbs over the last week or so, and he said to me that in a normal market, he's been around for 30, 40 years, that typically they sell about 30 to 40% of their properties that they've got on the market at any particular time to investors. But in the last 18 months or so, that's been more around the 5% mark. So investors really have dropped out of the market over that period of time. So let's have a look here at the first question, and then we'll go through the results and how they what they tell about the market at the moment. The first question was, has COVID made you more or less confident in property as a long-term investment? So again, we're looking at the confidence. We're wanting to find out what's going on. Obviously, confidence across the economy and in many different sectors took a real whack, particularly with the first hit of COVID. With those level of restrictions that were put in place and at different stages, it in the property market, it led to initial price falls. And it certainly saw other trends around moving more regional, rural living. And it saw Victoria have a net loss of migration at different stages, which really hurt sectors of the rental market particularly. Now, despite this, the survey that we conducted showed that 87.5% said that COVID had either not impacted their confidence or made them more confident in property as an investment option. Whereas the remaining 12.5% they said that they were less confident in property as a long-term investment option. So what we found is that confidence correlates to the strong prices that were experienced over the last 18 months or so. Figures released in September 2021 by the Australian Bureau of Statistics showed that median house prices had surged by $175,000 in the previous 12 months, which is obviously a far cry from the previous year, so 2020, when prices dropped by 4.6% from March to August in that year. So that strong, real V-shape recovery highlights the underlying long-term confidence in the Melbourne property market. And really that COVID has reinforced that age-old adage that in times of uncertainty, people do really revert to the stability that bricks and mortar do really provide. Now, when we look at questions 2 and 3, and as I said, it is a short survey, but we wanted to keep it that way just to get some quick information. It helps to look at the two questions together when we're looking at trying to understand the nature of property investment and how investors think. So question 2 was, would you purchase an investment property in the next 12 months if the right opportunity presented itself? So almost 50% of the respondents said that they would consider purchasing in the next 12 months. Which, given the confidence levels previously discussed in the market, may appear a little low at first glance. But if you look at the results of question 3, it really starts to show you the nature of property investment. So question 3 asked, do you plan to expand your property investment portfolio in the next 5 years? Now, in that question, almost 65% said they were likely or very likely to expand their portfolio in the next 5 years. So what this really does reiterate for us is that buying an investment property is absolutely not something that should be done on a whim. It takes time, planning, and you need to speak to a number of different service providers to make sure it's the right thing for you to do, and to make sure that you do it the right way. So that's financial planners, accountants, solicitors, a property advisor if you're going down that path, just to make sure that you've got everything organised and ready to go. So it really underlines that it is a cautious approach that investors should take, which is absolutely a good thing. But the confidence that people have currently got in the market means that many investors will be planning now for future investments over the next 5 years, depending upon their position and what other expenses they've got and the planning that they've been doing around their investment strategies going forward. So if you're starting to extrapolate out the insights gained from this data that we've put together, it helps to really inform and understand the potential impacts of future COVID spikes and whether that's going to have an impact in the next 12 months on the property market. And what it really shows is that COVID is not having a direct impact on people's confidence in the property market. There are a number of other factors that absolutely can and potentially will have impacts on the property market. And that's what we're going to discuss in the second part to this podcast episode, where we'll go over what our expectations are for 2022 and what some of these other impacts that may well impact the property market far more directly than what COVID itself will. Okay, so thanks for joining me for episode 22 of the Rewarding Property Decisions podcast. Now, this year, we'd really like to try and ramp up the exposure of the podcast and get it out to many more people. So, if possible, I'd really love to encourage you to pass it on to friends, family, colleagues, anyone that you might know that's got an interest in property, might be looking to buy, sell property, and they can tune in and spread it as widely as we possibly can. And obviously, if you would like more information on how to make rewarding property decisions, please visit our website, wakeland.com.au. And obviously, we wish you all the best with your property decisions.